I could see their excitement when I was playing the song. They were really into it. I kind of sped everything up a little bit, just kicked them in the ass a little.
The David Ellefson Show.
Hey everybody, David Ellefson here. Welcome to the David Ellefson Show. My cohort, Joshua Toomey here. You can also check him out on Talk to Me, his podcast, where we have met before. And so, cool guest today, Josh.
Big one this week.
Yeah, this was a big one. So our friend Dave Lombardo, who I've pretty much musically grown up with in my professional career, him being in Slayer, me being in Megadeth, of course, shared many stages. We always used to, go play shows together. I mean, Slayer and Megadeth are almost joined musically, as much as we're different bands. Of course, Kerry King, they kindly loaned him to us, as along with all of their Marshall cabinets, so that we could debut Megadeth back in 1984. But then in 1985, I think it was, our agent Andy Summers put us. We would fly together out to play at Metallica in Brooklyn, famous Metallica, and the City Gardens in Trenton.
Nice.
Yeah, so I remember that. I remember my mom was at that show because she was out there seeing like a family friend. So my mom and her friend came to see Slayer and Megadeth at the City Gardens.
How was your mom with like Megadeth and Slayer?
She loved it. Yeah, she loved it. Yeah, she loved it. You know what I mean? I mean, you can tell by the Megadeth, behind the music, she's was a sweet, kind soul for sure. But she was a big Elvis fan. She had the musical talent in our family. So she enjoyed, as much as she didn't like the music probably, she enjoyed seeing me on stage. She knew this was my passion and my drive. And so she loved it. I went west to California, went to Hollywood. There's gold in them there hills, So she always told me, even, before she passed, she said, she just said, oh, Dave, you just had such a better life out there. You not being a farmer, So she was. I think being a farmer's wife is it's a unique person to be that, as she was. Of course, she grew up in Iowa. My dad from Minnesota. But she loved, that I was making a name for myself, and Megadeth was doing it.
Yeah, it is crazy. I mean, my family, my grandparents, they were all into farming when I grew up too. So it's like, you hear those generational stories of like, oh, we didn't have electricity until, I remember my grandmother always tells me the story of we didn't have electricity until all the kids moved out of the house, and then that's when the family finally like linked up to the electrical grid or something. Yeah, like they were waiting for all the kids to be out of the house so they could get that fancy new electricity.
You don't know how good you got it. We used to have to walk 3 miles through the drifts and the snow and the tundra. A lot of stuff.
Crazy stuff. And the other person we have on the episode obviously is Dave's wife Paula, and they're on to talk about Venamoris. Her, I guess her solo album, all the songs written by her. Dave played a lot of guitar, produced, engineered, and everything else on it. And if you're into stuff like Portishead and just kind of chilling out of the house, I think you will definitely enjoy the Venamoris album, To Cross or To Burn. And as this episode comes out, it is out already, so go check it out.
Yeah, super great, super good stuff. So I loved it. Just kind of the whole history of his musical career, which is vast. As much as, I guess same with me, Peace Sells, Holy Wars, whatever. There's so much more to the story, musically. Same with Dave. I've always respected that about him. That in his years when he wasn't in Slayer, he wasn't just sitting back. He's definitely not a musical one-trick pony by any means, as he talks about. So. You
guys have a similar history in that, where you guys have played with a ton of different people, not just the same thing over and over and over. You guys can show that. But yeah, let's dive into our chat with Paula and Dave Lombardo.
Hey everybody, David Ellefson here. Hey, looking forward to seeing you on the upcoming Bass Warrior tour across Europe. We'll be performing some classics and some standards that you will all know, as well as some of the stuff off of my solo records over the years, from Sleeping Giants, Cover, maybe even dip back into some F5 and some cool stuff like that. So the Bass Warrior dates are posted online along with the stage-used bass packages. I play it, hand it to you, it's yours. Take home a piece of thrash history from the night. And we will have Bass Warrior coffee. We will also have merch, CDs, all kinds of other cool stuff. So come on out, it should be a fun night out. The dates are posted, but I'll read them for you here as well. We're going to kick off. These are all in March, by the way. So on March 6th, we start in Rome, Italy. The 7th, we'll be in Trofarello, Italy. And then we move up into France to the Champs-Élysées in the Del Vigno, which is actually sold out. That's on March 8th. Then we're over to Mannheim, Germany on the 9th. We're up in Flensburg, north of Hamburg on the 12th. Reichenbach on the 13th, and then we're over to Dolmeko, Poland on the 14th, Velden, Australia on the 15th. We were then up to Vienna, Austria on the 18th, Bochnia, Poland on the 20th, Brumov, Czech Republic, hopefully I'm saying these right, pardon my Czech. That's going to be on the 20th. We are again in the Czech Republic. In Svarobarice, Kino Club on the 22nd, Vruki in Slovakia on the 23rd, and we'll be finishing on the 29th in Cremona, Italy at the Music Factory Live. So those are the dates. Come and check it out. We look forward to seeing you there on Bass Warrior 2025.
Welcome to the David Ellefson Show. This is brand new. Thank you guys for dropping in. I really.
Yeah. What's the how do you say the band name?
Venamoris. Yeah.
Venamoris.
We basically took the Venamoris phrase, which is the vein that runs from your ring finger, your wedding ring finger to your heart. Supposedly,
Well, I've heard about this. I have heard about this, that is a real thing, and that's why the wedding band goes on that finger, because it goes directly to the heart. And it's not the same on this. I've noticed some Europeans wear the wedding ring on that finger, so it's which is interesting. So
we were tossing names around, and that one came up, and we say, well, instead of two, why don't we just run it together?
Right.
And there was only a couple other people that were using it, a jewelry store, and which is appropriate.
Yeah.
And there was a metal band that was using it, but they hadn't been online or active for over 12 years. So it's like, fuck it, we're taking it.
Yeah. So you're not worried about like a copyright, the attorney contacting you or anything. You're just gonna roll with it. Fuck it.
We're rolling. We already have 2 records out, and we got the domain, we got several other things, and the band was inactive for over 12 years. So I don't see it ever.
Yeah. Okay, so the song "Truth" is awesome. Obviously, that was a single. It was a track. When I was kind of prepping for this, I listened to that. So. It seems to be, or maybe I even read about healing past hurts and things like that, right? So, Paula, great singing on it, great vocals. So cool. You want to talk anything about that? It's kind of an up track.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right there. It's just about healing trauma and various things from your past, and just kind of making peace with everything. And I wanted it to be as simple as it is. Just very, very honest. It was actually one of the hardest songs to put out, because I felt like it was very much just some personal feelings that I wrote down on paper. But and then Dave added the what do you call it? Angular drumming,
weird angular drum beat.
Yeah.
I felt, from my perspective, and being at the helm of the recording and the instruments and the sounds and everything, I felt like it didn't need anything more. It was just, this is where the song needs to be.
Yeah.
Right.
It's simple, straight, 3 chords in the truth, as they say.
Yeah.
But it's just what it needed. And here we are with it as one of the singles, and we couldn't be happier.
So, it's funny because I've known you, right? I mean, we've known each other since we were, you kindly loaned a Carrie to us in 1984 to go debut Megadeth. And I remember going over to, your jam pad in Tom Araya's backyard, and you had all your drums and all your stuff. In fact, I remember Carrie showing us, you had a poster on the wall. It was like, I think it was particularly him and Jeff. And he goes, yeah, that was our Scorpions phase. You guys, you had the skinny jeans, spandex on, so, of the phase we all went through, because we're all of the same age. We probably all share a similar record collection. But one thing about you that people know now, post Slayer a couple of times, just like me, post Megadeth a couple of times, is our fans learn that, oh, wow, there's like more musicality to them than, you playing Angel of Death, me just playing Holy Wars. You know what I mean? That, and I'll speak to one in particular, when I came back to Megadeth in 2010, look, you were back, Joey Belladonna was back in Anthrax. So we did those big 4 shows and that was kind of the big homecoming for, the bands were kind of,
it was
as best they could be. Right. So it was, big celebration on a lot of levels, but right after that, then we did this was American Carnage. So Slayer, Megadeth, and we'd show up about 4:00 every day for sound check, and you'd be behind the kit. No one else in Slayer would show up for sound check. They were kind of still building, getting the deck ready. But you were always up there on the kit playing Gene Krupa, and, and I remember asking you, going like, man, you're like, you're never like, ripping through the toms or playing some Iron Maiden, thing or any of that kind of stuff, which I think people would expect from us. Even us might expect that from us, but you're always playing Krupa and a bunch of other stuff. And, talk about your musical upbringing. You're from Cuba, right? Were you born in Cuba and then moved here, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the age of 2, so in the house, I was living in a Cuban household. We were immigrants. None of us spoke English. Obviously, I mean, I wasn't speaking yet. I'm just mumbling words at that time at 2 years old. And the music that was being played in the house was Cuban music. In the local radio station, I was playing Spanish music, and I remember my mom having the radio on in the kitchen all the time, but my brothers, who were older, they were listening to, one brother was into more of the R&B style of music, Chaka Khan, Sly and the Family Stone, War, several other ones. I mean, I can't think of them all. And then my other brother, Danny, he was into Zeppelin. He was really, Cream was one of his favorite bands. And Eric Clapton, he's an Eric Clapton fanatic. He could tell you everything about Clapton. And he had the Led Zeppelin 2 record. And so at a young age, I'm like 5 years old. So, in 1970, I was, exposed to all this music. And then later, as I got older, of course, I found my own niche, which was obviously rock and roll. And I loved Elvis. And, I remember my sister-in-law by my older brother, she had a huge Elvis collection, this album collection. So I was really listening to a lot of that. And it was just, then I found Kiss. I really got into Kiss.
Right.
From Kiss, it went into like any radio hits that I was listening to on the radio that I was gravitating to. I remember recording on a little cassette player. Anytime a cool song came on, I'd record and keep those cassettes and listen to them. And I went to school the next day and told friends, hey, have you heard this song? Have you heard that song? But most of them were into sports, and I wasn't into sports. And then my sister's husband, he was I would call him musicologist. He loved jazz. He was into jazz, Latin jazz. He turned me on to so many different styles of music that later it wasn't until later that I appreciated it, after I went back and searched for those recommendations and those songs that he had, presented to me when I was a kid. And because I was all into Kiss. There was nothing else, in my life at that time but Kiss. And so yeah. And then my love for different styles of music just continued. I'll never forget when I went back to Slayer in 2001, I believe, maybe early 2002. The guys in the band, they didn't know what to do with me because I was already in Phantomus with Patton, and I was learning new styles of music through them. And they just thought I was weird, because I'd listened to so many styles of music.
Yeah.
And so it hasn't stopped since. So that's basically who I am. I love metal. Nothing's going to take me away from metal. I'll always play. I mean, actually, there was an interviewer a couple of days ago. He asked me, so, with Venamoris, are you now, are you alienating metal? It's like, no, that's in my bloodstream. I got little metal particles, flowing through my veins,
Hey, so let me ask you about Kiss, because I was the same way. Once, Bachman Turner Overdrive, Sweets, the stuff. And then as I was hearing Kiss, shouted out loud, and then I saw them on the Paul Lynn Halloween special and all that. I mean, our lives changed, right? When those of us who mentioned Kiss, it wasn't just a passing band. They were like, we were all in, And so, but the funny thing with Kiss, as big as a fan as I was, I always found their songs too hard to play, and I couldn't find anyone else who knew them, right? I knew, people who knew. They knew Skinner and Nugent and, kind of the, the rock and roll, because it was sort of the boogie chord, right? That 70s kind of chord shape, right, for guitar players. But did you study, like, kind of deep dive Peter Criss?
Yes.
Because there's a great video that I saw where, it was kind of like, we all thought Peter Criss was so simple, but try doing this sort of dragging ghost note thing that he does, like, especially on his solo on Kiss Alive.
Yeah.
Right. That. And it was, he was kind of a jazz guy, I think, growing up as well. Right. So he had a different musical thing. Did any sort of pontification on Peter Criss that either blew your mind or kind of a thing that he had that you really liked?
Yeah. The first album I ever purchased was Kiss Alive. And I studied that album front to back, and I played it. I played that. I loved that record. And I would sit in my bedroom with my drum set, in one corner and my bed in the other, and I would play along to it. I would come home from school and crank up the stereo, and because that's what I would look forward to do.
Right.
And that's basically, the style of music that kind of taught me. I was into, I remember buying Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze Foxy Lady 45 and playing along to that. Having all, like several Zeppelin records, and like you mentioned, Ted Nugent, Double Live Gonzo. I love that. Yeah. So I remember teaching myself 100,000 Years and playing along to that and attracting, the local long hairs, the hippies, the musician neighborhood. Hey, I think there's a drummer that lives down the street. And I'd be playing the drums, and my mom would say, "Oh, Dave, there's some kids outside just listening to you." And it was funny. It was a time. It was
yeah. So, I had the same experience going back to Megadeth in 2010 after being away from it for a few years. I did a lot of different stuff, a lot of different musical stuff, acoustic guitar work. I was a worship leader at church. I mean, I did all kinds of stuff. I got to appreciate Sting playing bass and singing, right? Like, in defining the note, you know what I mean? And there was an interview with Sting, and they asked him, why the bass? And he goes, because I define the chord change. And as a singer, by what I define the chord change, that's where the vocal goes, and I was thinking, God, how cool.
Yeah, I loved the album. It was like early 80s, Dream of the Blue Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny. Was Omar Hakim on that? Was he the drummer on that?
Probably.
He might have been, because I finally got to go see Weather Report. I was good friends with my friend Ethan, the trombone player. And so we played in jazz band together and stuff. And he went on to get a music degree, and he teaches up in Minneapolis and stuff. But we finally got to go see at Northrop Auditorium to go see Weather Report. But Jocko and Peter Erskine had just left. And I was like, oh man, but it was Omar Hakim and Victor Bailey. So then
Omar played drums on that.
What's that?
Omar did play drums
He
on that.
was it, yeah. And then he went on and played, went on and played with Sting. I was like, whoa, this is freaking awesome. You know what I mean? So it'll be basically Sting when just grabbed a jazz band, a bunch of jazz musicians to go do his solo career, his pop music stuff, which was, you living in LA, wasn't our music style, but even Michael Jackson and all the stuff. I mean, they were grabbing like the coolest guys in town, to make those records and play like that. So, right. Paula, so what did you grow up on?
Completely opposite from all of you. I was
And to be expected.
I was raised on Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson. I mean,
that was me.
For like real badasses, yeah. Like,
yeah, they're the songwriters. The Highwaymen, Chris Christopherson, and it would have gone into things like Heart. I'm from Canada, so Nazareth and Kim Mitchell, if anybody remembers that name.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So those are my earliest influences. I think Van Halen was also on Black Sabbath, if I go a little heavier, but probably
you were like really into awesome music, while the rest of us were like just jamming out to like,
Oh, no.
To see how fast we can play today.
Yeah, right. It's funny that Nazareth Greatest Hits, that's one of my Airplane albums, This Flight Tonight, Razzmatazz, all your sure.
That song. She turned on to
Razzmatazz.
Dude, isn't that a great? I want to cover that with somewhere somehow. It's just such a great freaking song. And like, did you listen to April Wine? Were they part of your Canadian diet, or were they mainstream?
No, not really. I mean, I had their record, but I never really listened to it. And I'll get so much hate for this, but I never really got into Rush either.
Yeah.
So
Triumph.
Yeah, Triumph.
Triumph, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Or Raise a Little Hell.
Yeah.
I think if you don't like Rush, I think they
growing up in
your Canadian citizenship.
Yeah, growing up in Minnesota, there are always bands playing "Raise a Little Hell," the Trooper song, and I thought it was Head East all the time, but it turns out it was Trooper, So, oh yeah, how about the Guess Who? Were you like a BTO or a Guess Who fan, or was that not your jam?
No, I wasn't. I had a very limited selection of records. Really, my family was just really into more country music and that sort of thing. So that was kind of everything that I was around, except for Kiss. I learned on the piano as soon as I started classical piano lessons. So Kiss was something as well. But yeah, and then I went.
How about Coney Hatch? Let's go to the Canadian diva. How about Helix? Helix was Canadian, right?
Canadian, yeah. They. But I also liked Anne Murray. Like.
Oh yeah, now we're talking. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Oh, like that kind of thing.
Well, with that, Paula, with that musical background, when you started getting around Dave, you started diving into some of that Slayer catalog. What are you thinking there?
I was floored because obviously you'd have to live under a rock not to know who Slayer is. But I never listened to that. So when I met Dave, it was very organic. We didn't know anything about one another. We just hit it off. And I knew him. He was touring with Slayer at the time. So of course I started sort of looking into what that was. But we were just talking, just chatting all the time. And he was just so kind. I never really put the two together so much. And then I went to my first Slayer show and I was able to be just right behind his drums, basically next to his tech. And I was blown away. I mean, I had never seen anything like that. And it continues, with Mr. Bungle, Dead Cross, Empire State Bastard, Misfits. It's crazy to watch him play. And I think I'm a late blooming metalhead punk, Nice. But I think
it's never too late.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. The more metal the man, the nicer they are. So there you go. And I would say that I would say the same for Dave. One of the kind of end of our business. Hey, and speaking of that, so like, again, you go from Slayer. Obviously, we were on tour when you played with Suicidal Tendencies. Was great. I remember specifically watching you over the kind of the stairs from the backstage, which was sort of upstairs behind the stage, watching you play, and smaller kid just back there just grinding, and it was Suicidal at the House of Blues Boston, I remember, is where it was.
Yeah, I remember that show.
Yeah, we were hanging out afterwards and stuff, and it was so great, man. It was just like, what a perfect, of course they would call it, like, you're just an obvious fit, you know what I mean? And it's and then going to the Misfits, which was a quite a big gig, right? I mean, who would have thought the Misfits would be that big? That they
that was a shock for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to expect. I got a phone call from Glenn, and he telling me about everything. He said, "I'm not doing this unless you're doing it." I
Wow.
said, "Okay, if that's the way you want it, I mean, well, okay, let's do it." And I've been with them since 2016. The funny thing is that I wasn't really into the Misfits. I got into when I first got into punk. It was Circle Jerks, Dead Kennedys, GBH, Exploited. It was music that came out, after the Misfits had broken up, and I just didn't. The sound, music had already sonically, punk had already evolved, and it was, really appealing to me. But as I started learning the songs, their old catalog, all their original catalog, I was blown away at how amazing the songwriting and the lyrics and the structure were. Simple, very simple, straight to the point song structure. And I could see how influential they were, to metal and, obviously to Metallica and to a lot of, um, rock and metal bands. So it was really cool. And man, they're earworms. Those songs just
Josh, were you a Misfits fan? Were you into that world?
Yeah, it was one of those things where Metallica, putting out Garage Days, you hear, Green Hell and Last Caress. As an 11, 12-year-old, you're like, oh my God, these lyrics are crazy. And then from there, I went back and got into the Misfits and into the catalog. So it's wild to see them, kind of break up as a club band back in '83 and then come back as a festival headliner arena band, in 2016, 2017. So, and it was amazing to see Dave play. I saw the second Riot Fest show in Chicago with Dave playing drums, and amazing night of music.
Yeah, it was. It's phenomenal. Still, I'm going to go to New Jersey next month and going to go rehearse with Jerry Only, brush off the cobwebs, and we have those 2 Coachella shows, and it's
Cool.
pretty exciting.
Pretty crazy that the Misfits got their logo on the Coachella ad mat. Like nobody gets that. Like everybody is in the one font except for the Misfits. They got their, like, I'm assuming Glenn or somebody put their foot down and we're like, no, we got our logo on the ad mat.
If you want anybody to go fight for you, that's Glenn.
That's awesome. Hey, so Mr. Bungle, admittedly, I don't get it. It's because it's so, and again, when Faith No More blew up, obviously then we heard about Mr. Bungle, kind of like, I guess, Slipknot being big, and then Corey Taylor brings, Stone Sour. Who's this? What is this?
Yeah.
When you find out the background of his band before. Bungle was kind of the same thing, right? Wasn't that his band before Faith No More?
Yeah.
They're 3 high school friends, Trevor Dunn, Trace Bruins, and Mike Patton. And they just had this real quirky, left of center, band that really, at least the first album was loved by all the guys in Slayer. Well, I don't know about Carrie, but definitely Jeff and Tom really loved.
I can't see Carrie liking that. I mean, and I say what I don't get about it is I just didn't pay, Faith No More was huge. We were all doing our careers. I heard about it. I knew about it. I saw some stuff in magazines, and then, life moved on. And then probably like the Misfits, it sort of was put on the shelf for many years, a couple of decades, I think. Right. And then obviously the news of you and Scott Ian, and then it's like, oh, wow, okay, this is a thing. So, I mean, I don't own the record, but I've, gone through some videos and watched it. And it's interesting. I paid attention to your drumming of it because, again, it's very avant-garde. It's a different thing. What's different about that band, that music, that approach that would be different than, say, just playing a standard rock gig?
It's unpredictable. The counts, the phrases, it doesn't, the phrases won't end or begin where you would normally think, you know.
Yeah.
There's lots of counting involved.
It seems like it, because it's not riff driven. It's not sort of, right. Or if it is,
I believe it is riff driven.
Is that all right?
But they do the best as they can to not make it as, predictable.
Yeah,
They want to make sure that they throw something in there. It's like, wait, where did that come from? Okay, how did they do this? How did they go from this, riff to that riff? They just try to color it up a little to a point where it's a little blurred. You're like, wait, what's going on here? And then when you really, pick it apart, you're like, wow, that's fucking genius. Personally, I feel the musicianship, especially Trey Spruance and Trevor, their musicianship is beyond anything I've experienced when I've collaborated with musicians, which also it helps me become a better musician.
Yeah.
It makes me think in different ways when I approach a song, when I collaborate, or even with Venamoris. It's like, okay, how can I mess with this? I go to my catalog in my brain of what I've seen people do with this, and I try to get inspired and try to make things a little bit different than.
Now, what's funny about this, because you're playing in all these different things. I remember we were on the road together, Slayer, Megadeth, and it was when Broderick and Drover were in the band, and it was in Newfoundland, and we had to walk through this kind of hallway you had to walk through our dressing room to get to your dressing room. And I remember we were warming up in our little jam room. We said, dude, here, sit down. I remember Drover's behind the kid. He goes, dude, sit down, let's play. You go, no. I said, dude, let's play some Maiden, let's play some Priest or something. You're like, no. And you respectfully declined, but I was like, fuck, dude, sit down. Let's rock, let's jam, And it's funny how you've been in some just such random gigs, which is great because it shows musicianship. I do the same thing. I play with, first of all, if I like the people and I like the song and the music, yeah, I'm in, right? So, and it doesn't have to be what we always did. In fact, that's kind of the fun of it for us is to go do that. So, and we've done Metal Allegiance before, but I think we play like a Slayer song or something. It was the obvious, right? It was what everyone. So, it's interesting, that you and I, coming from our backgrounds, we never just sat down and just jammed, like, I don't Run to the Hills or something like that. Yet we did play Am I Evil by at the Big Four, and it was interesting. You were the only member of Slayer that came out and played on that, and even there was snare drums and whatever, and we all came out and played it. And I remember we were driving to Sofia, Bulgaria, and getting the text from Scott Ian, to our bus saying, hey, Metallica wants us to jump up and jam a song. It looks like, and then it was like, well, what song? And then a little while later, these sort of cryptic, army style messages, might be a jam. Oh shit. Okay. What song? Silence, radio silence. And looks like it'll be Am I Evil? Oh my God. Or maybe he picks up and starts learning Am I Evil. It's going to be the first part of Am I Evil, and, we had our little jam room set up backstage there, and I remember the Anthrax guys coming over, and you might have even come over too, and we're all kind of running through the arrangement before we were invited to Metallica's jam room, and just how how casual it was, right? It wasn't casual. It was like they invited us into their room, and Metallica.
Yeah, that's how those things should be. If you make mistakes, so what? It doesn't matter. You don't have to know the song. Just, just go up there unplugged. Just sit your way, have a great time.
And they have a good sound, man. So if we suck, they just pull us down anyway. You know what I mean? They're not going to turn Metallica down. They'll turn us down if we're off. So, but yeah, it was a great moment. And it's funny, Josh, you brought it up when we were just kind of comparing notes with the, just to sit here and talk about today. And I forget about that, but it's like, because I remember then when we did American Carnage, Kerry wanted to come up and jam Rattlehead with us, of all things. He's like, listen, I'll never live this down that I didn't jam Am I Evil. I said, I know what the fuck, dude. You should just come up. It's like, I mean, it's about as simple as it gets. Yeah. And for whatever reason, didn't do it. Didn't want to do it, whatever. But, then comes up and plays Rattlehead with us. I'm like, Jesus, dude, that song's like, algebra compared to Am I Evil? You know what I mean? But which was fun. We did that at the Universal Amphitheater. I think it was our last show that we did on that tour.
Probably, yeah.
But it was just so great, and what a celebration. I mean, talk about that moment, just kind of, being invited into that, being on stage. It was this, because that was such a celebration for our 4 bands, to be locked together like that.
Well, I mean, Metallica being obviously who they are, they've always, at least to me, they've always been very welcoming. They've been always kind to me. And you can see that they're, very respectful, other bands, and they treat everyone really well. And so having them, ask us to go up there and perform with them. Yeah, that's Metallica. Yeah, that's them, They're not, they don't mind other musicians coming up and, sharing the spotlight. They're amazing people. I've always enjoyed being around them. All of them,
Yeah.
Even
totally chill, like just like the kind of band that you like. What a great band to be in, like easy. And it's funny. I remember I was kind of walking around filming some stuff, that for the DVD, and I thought for sure that Rainstorm was going to bust open on you guys. I kept predicting and go, I don't know. The looks of the clouds, looks at the stage time, I think the rains are coming down on Slayer. And then sure enough, we go out and the rain come down right on us as we started. Yeah. And it wasn't any of our bands. It was just I'm a shitty weatherman apparently, right? I can't. So,
yeah. But if it come down on us during Rain and Blood.
I thought, come on, how could the Lord not speak? You know what I mean? But instead it was holy words, but whatever. But I just remember all these people putting on these colored raincoats, and it was like the most colorful heavy metal crowd I'd ever seen, like pink and purple. I'm like, wow, who would have thought? It looked good on TV,
Hey everybody, David Ellefson here. Hey, I want to invite you over to my Patreon community. For $8 a month, you will get exclusive content and also episodes of the David Ellefson Show podcast. You will get them a week early before anybody else gets a chance to see them. We're going to have some exclusive content over there, plus also some chats that you'll be able to be a part of. So this is all about us connecting, being part of it. So thank you for following me on my journey, my music career, and everything that I do. It's a great way to stay up to date and up to speed and stay connected with everything in rock and roll that I do. All right, so join me on Patreon. Head on over, sign up, and I will see you there.
Well, let me dive in here for a second, Dave. You're talking about Metallica, and years ago when I interviewed with Joey Jordison, I talked to him about obviously going up that night and playing with Metallica. Obviously, you got to do the same thing. So when they come to you, do they say, what songs do you know? What songs can you get through? Like how many songs can you do tonight? Because I mean, that's honestly, when I go back and watch random old Metallica stuff, that's one of my favorite concerts to go back and watch, just because of how crushing you are. Rest in peace, Joey, how crushing Joey was that night. And just kind of, take it from your angle of getting that, hey, we need you to play some drums tonight, Lars. This isn't here.
Well, fortunately, Joey, he had a Metallica cover band when he was young,
right,
before Slipknot, or maybe even during Slipknot. And so he was very familiar with a lot of their newer albums. I was into obviously the first 3, 4, I think, up until Master of Puppets. And then while at first, I wasn't into the Black Album, eventually the Black Album grew on me, because it is a masterpiece. And so, I was more familiar with their earlier stuff. And so when I saw the set list, it's like, okay, well, I could do these, which was Four Horsemen and Battery. And
I even could play the Four Horsemen too. So
Oh, awesome.
You're part of it.
Or is it mechanics?
The mechanic.
there we go.
I'd have to order the riddle section, but it's funny. Dave told me that when they were writing, Lars said, "Oh, we need a part like Sweet Home Alabama," and he wrote that part. That's where that piece came from. Then I guess later they put it in. They put it in to make the mechanics, and it became the Four Horsemen.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, when they told me, I said, look, I can do the two. I could probably figure out some of the other ones. But they had me just go up and do the first two. And then Bowie and obviously Fleming went up and finished, the rest of the songs. So I was grateful. It's awesome. I have a picture and a frame, personalized frame with all their names and everything, and saying how grateful they were that I came up. I stepped up and helped them.
Kind of became Metallica Fest, right? Because he had all these people helping out, right? It was like all these, you included, and it's more like, hey, what songs do you know? What songs do you know? And yeah.
I think
Hey, go ahead.
one of the real special moments was in the rehearsal. We were in one of those what are those things, like I guess it was a small portable rehearsal room.
Yeah, those rooms like they have it download, right? Those like
They got drum set in there, they got their amp, they jam, get warmed up, get ready. And we were in there, and I could see their excitement when I was playing the song. They were really into it, and kind of I kind of sped everything up a little bit, just kicked them in the ass a little. And it was fun, man. It was that moment that was really special. Then we went on stage, and obviously professional mode, steps in, and you really have to focus and make sure, that everything's right, and you kick ass for the moment. But it was a challenge, exciting, fun, grateful, moment in history that never be repeated again.
Yeah, and that's the one thing with Lars over the years. I mean, he's not really stepped away. Like there's only 4 people that have ever played drums on stage live with Metallica over these years. You being one of them. So it's pretty crazy, and you can tell in those videos, James's smile is so big when you're playing drums. Like he's just like, this is pounding and crushing. No offense to Lars, but I'm just saying, like he hadn't played those songs like that probably since 83, 84. You know what I'm saying?
Some of Kurt's commentary, which I'll keep private, was really, really funny and very complimentary and very kind from them. I have nothing but respect for those guys. I have absolute respect.
Lars is a fan who put a band together. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about it. I mean, Brian Schlegel telling me about that. They were like trading records, and I guess Lars had a drum kit sitting over in the corner. He goes, you should put that kit together one day and start a band. And apparently Lars was like, yeah, I don't know, I'll think about it, and then does it and becomes the biggest metal band in the world. And I just love that about his spirit. And I love his drumming, man. I mean, he is he's got a unique style. It's him when you hear him, and as any musician how hard that is. Probably even more so with the drummer. I mean, drummers are often defined kind of by your snare drum. A Kenny Aronoff or an Alex Van Halen. There's certain snare sounds that as soon as that's Van Halen, or that's Kenny Aronoff or whatever. And certain fills. Obviously, you've got kick drum patterns that are just uniquely yours, you know what I mean? So for drummers, for Lars, it's probably his cymbal hits, you know what I mean? He's the king of the cymbal hits. And of course he's a composer, it's his vision, you know what I mean? So it's, without Lars, none of us would be here, really. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. We're all just kind of a branch off the Lars Ulrich family, Metallica family tree in a certain way,
Yeah, it's true. And oddly, we were all living very close to each other. I think in the early days, very early days, I think Mustaine was in Santa Fe Springs. Is that correct? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't even know where that is.
Oh, okay. It's California.
Wasn't in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Okay.
No. Santa Fe Springs, California. And I think James as well was from like Bellflower.
Yeah. And it was all Downey, Pomona, that whole area right there.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, we're lucky, right? I mean, here's what I always thought of too with the Big Four. I think we were or are one of the only bands or one of genres that actually all four bands were still actively working at that time, right? Because I couldn't think of a jam band. I mean, there's the Grateful Dead, maybe Fish, two bands, but I mean, they're not even Orange or the OGs, only the Dead. Think about country artists. I can't think of any. I was thinking about new metal bands. I mean, there's not really any that were sort of the pillar, like the four founding fathers of a genre. Any genre, name of any one of them, and they were all still active, and still around as a brand. And so for that moment to happen, and for Metallica to have enough foresight, them and John Jackson, their agent, they have the foresight to put that together and go grab every one of us kind of before it was too late. I mean, essentially Slayer's retired. I mean, Pantera's not in that because they were sort of a half generation behind us. So I think we're very lucky that our musical pedigree is of that, and not only that we were there, but it's got as big as it did. You know what I mean? I mean, who would have thought with a bunch of thrashers and skateboarders and all that was around us that would have ever gone to the heights that it did. We're very, very lucky with that.
Yeah, we are. It's awesome.
Hey, I want to talk about another thing that hopefully will never happen again, which was COVID. Remember during COVID, right? We all were at home. And we decided to do the Ellefson no cover record, and I have the record, and I tapped you. I mean, I hit everybody, and it's you and Jason McMaster and Bumblefoot. We did a cover of AC/DC Riff Raff on that record, and I hit Charlie Benante and Doro and just everybody. I was like, hey, we're home. It sucks. Let's keep playing. You know what I mean? And you were kind enough to jump in and throw some drums down for us. So thank you for that. I never got a chance
Welcome.
other than text maybe to say thank you for that. So
yeah,
that was a really great moment. And, I'm just glad through that vehicle, we all kept playing music, and kept keep our spirits up, while everyone was kind of going, what's next, as the world ended.
It's odd that period allowed me to release my solo record, allowed us to work on our first record. I co-produced another band, Satanic Planet, and I worked with you, and also Ice-T. I re-recorded Colors for them. There were an Empire State Bastard and Annihilator. There were so many records that I was able to record out of my home studio.
Dude, you did an Annihilator record. I always wanted to do an Annihilator record. Jeff is one of the best friends, and we've threatened to work together, and we've never done it yet. But I was like, "Fuck, dude, I'll play it for you and Annihilator any day. I'll pay you to do it. It'll be."
He's amazing. He's an amazing guitar player.
Oh, he's incredible. Yeah.
And one of the craziest, if you look at Annihilator's Wikipedia page at former members of Annihilator, it is insane. I actually interviewed Jeff Waters one time, and I was like, dude, how many people from this list could walk up to you and say, I was in Annihilator, and you wouldn't know who they are? He's like, probably a couple of them. Because, I mean, it's literally pages of people that have been in Annihilator.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also an amazing bass player, so he doesn't need me to play bass on his record.
Oh, really?
I love to do it just to go do it because Alice and Hell, man. I mean, God, me and Marty and Nick, we would drive to rehearsals for we were writing Rust in Peace, listening to Alice and Hell all the time. Just fucking that. The first two records, man, I just love those records. So wow, lucky you, man. Yeah.
All we did was re-record metal album. I don't know if there was one album called Metal, and we re-recorded it because apparently he was unhappy with the way the drums were recorded originally. And so I was able to record them. Yeah, it turned out great.
Well, I have to say, actually, speaking of COVID, my last concert I saw before COVID, my wife and I on our honeymoon flew to San Francisco to see Mr. Bungle because we both love Mr. Bungle. And so I got to see one of the Raging Wrath of the Easter Bunny nights, right around Valentine's Day, 2020.
It was with
What's that? Yeah, with Possessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You playing with them, Dave, at that time? Were you and Mr. Bungle at that time? You were.
Yeah. We had just started, and we had returned from San Francisco. That's when I was sick, right? I think I had the very early stages of COVID, or when it first came out. We were in Brooklyn, and I came down with something, and guys, I had a fever that was unbelievable. It was one of the worst.
Probably COVID, yeah.
And I was, she was, when I flew to San Francisco, she met us there, and she saw me. She didn't know how I was going to play the gig.
Yeah.
Because I was just bad.
Barely move.
Yeah, I couldn't, but somehow,
You get it.
I did.
You crushed it, yeah.
So during COVID, that's when you started Venamoris then. That was when that all got started. Interesting.
Yeah, that's when I finally talked her into it, after we had so much time to sit and discuss, why aren't you writing? You need to write. Anybody that's told you anything other than what I'm telling you, you need to say, fuck off.
Get started.
I was listening to Cross or to Burn earlier today as I was kind of getting lunch together, and the thing that really hit me is it's got a very like Portishead vibe to it. It's got like just a very chill vibe, and I like it. Like it was nice to just have on as you're just kind of hanging out at the house. It's not it's not abrasive and crazy. It's like it's just very just relaxing. It was so nice to just put something like that on today.
It's soothing.
Yeah.
It's soothing. It cuts down the abrasion. Yeah. I love it. It's a great contrast to everything else that I do, and I really enjoy that. And also, after I do some intense gigs, I could come home, relax, and then dive into Venamoris, get into the more Portishead, and even a band called Jucifer inspired us, in the early days, because they were writing not only super heavy riffs and hardcore music, but then they would interject these really beautiful melodies and soft guitars and soft vocals. And I was like, wow, that's a really that's really inspiring, and it inspired her. And so yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yes.
I got introduced to a guy. In fact, we were just talking about, is it Valdemar?
Yeah.
His name. Yeah. So he was in Grip Inc. with you, right?
Yeah.
And guy that's kind of making the introduction, he said Grip Inc. I said, dude, I remember, Lombardo was in Grip Inc. This was back in the 90s, I guess. We were in Europe, and you were driving in the car to the next gigs. We were driving around doing. I thought, how impressive, because to come from our big bands, and then you're just like, remember, it was after the show, you were tearing everything down, you were getting in the car, and you're getting ready to roll to the next gig, and I was like, that's hard, especially to follow a bus tour or a festival tour.
Yeah.
In the car, man. And it's I thought it was very impressive that you were out.
Let's call those the stupid years.
Call them what you want. You were doing them. You know what I mean? It was great.
Except music and the band,
Yeah. But, look, I've done a lot of that stuff. You get in the car and drive. Frank Bello and I, actually with Bumblefoot, we were driving around doing Altitudes and Attitude shows in the Midwest. And Frank was like, I've never seen this part of the country. I've always been in the back of the bus sleeping or, playing video games or whatever. I said,
I love doing that.
Yeah. It's kind of cool, right? It's just, you just get in the car and go, man. You see a whole different, you kind of connect to the.
We did that with Suicidal as well in Europe.
Yeah.
You go on your own time. We drive obviously faster, or at least I drive faster than the bus. So I'm able to bolt after the show, get to the next city, or stay the night and drive the next day, depending on the layout of the tour. So yeah, you get to see a lot, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, Josh, I'll tell you what, let's let you guys go. Thanks so much for stopping in, Paul. It was nice to meet you. Dave, great to see you again. And
see you, Dave.
Yeah, this was great.
This is really great. So thanks for coming in and sharing some Venamoris stuff with us. So what's next for you guys with that group?
Well, right now we're about to release the record, and our publisher wants us to re-record a song, one of the songs stripped down with just the pianist and vocals.
Okay.
So that's up next. We have 3 other songs.
Yeah, we're developing 3 other songs to release. And then we have some other music that we signed a publishing deal that the songs that wouldn't fit the Venamoris style anymore. We're going to finish those songs up too and just.
Yeah, there's like 15 other songs.
Yeah.
She's a writing machine. And she has
Right.
to wait for me, and she goes, "Hey, have you worked on that? What you need to work on over there?"
So when you're off of the Misfits, things are good at home. She's taking care of Venamoris and rocking it. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's been cool.
Yeah. So it's good. It keeps me busy. And, because people say, how does he do it? Well, not all the bands go on tour at the same time.
Right.
And so, and then when I come home, what they expect, fans expect me to do nothing. I like staying busy, and even though it's different style of music, it brushes up on my engineering chops and production chops. And it just helps all the way around, and she gets to be creative. And it's, like I said, some couples open a restaurant and a coffee shop. We like to make music. So
Yeah. You open up Pro Tools to get started. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, you guys. Best of luck with that. Have a great year. We'll see you somewhere in our travels. And
yes,
thanks for joining us. Really, really appreciate it. Awesome.
Later, guys.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cheers.
So, wow.
That was awesome.
Cool. Nice to meet Paula, man. It's Dave is he's a kind man, and he's always kind of a family man. He was always like that, even in Slayer. It's kind of like the 3 Slayer guys, and then Dave. So it's just great to see. I like the name of the band too.
Yeah, good story behind the name.
Great
Funny
story.
how I originally linked up with Paula through our mutual friend Jeremy Owsley, who was your bus driver at the time.
Yes.
Because I was like, hey, he's like, hey, I met Dave's manager / wife at the show, and I was like, get him on the podcast. And he came back with Paula's email and emailed back and forth with her, and I got Dave.
So Jeremy helped look that up. That's awesome.
Oh yeah, Jeremy.
Well, Jeremy, a super wonderful bus driver. I guess, was he driving during American Carnage? Maybe when we were out doing Megadeth Slayer, was that?
I don't think so. I think he was later on. I think he was. Yeah, he would have been later on because I remember I had to finagle my way into that concert. So
I just remember. If you knew Jeremy, you'd be it. I just remember Jeremy pulled the house here after a tour. And I was one of the last ones to get dropped off. And the advantage of that is you get to pilfer all the shit off the bus, like all the Cheerios and the fucking coffee and whatever drinks are in the fridge. So
you just can't walk
into my refrigerator. So that's the perk of being dropped off last.
There you go. But yeah, great. Paula's always been great to the podcast. And obviously, you and Dave just going back and forth on stories. It's one of those, like, sometimes I'm like, why am I here? Like, I'm just gonna take myself off the show because I would listen to the show. I'd watch this show if I wasn't on the show because I want to hear Dave and David talk about.
You get to be the first front row VIP spectator of some of this stuff,
right? Yeah.
And then look, that's the perk of you putting the show together. Thank you. If I have done so publicly, again, thank you so much for. This was really your brainchild, because for this very reason, after we talked on a couple of podcasts, you said to me, you said, dude, you've got so many stories and there's so many people, it's like, and just, I think as a historian yourself, as a fan, someone who interviews, being a musician yourself, but also someone who has grown up on this, I guess, I'm lucky that I am in a genre and in an age group and an era of music that has this very storied history. There's a lot of music that has come and gone. Do the songs last forever? No. Do you remember any of the players, outside of the rock world? Are they mainstream? Are they household names? No. And I'm lucky that in my genre, my band, my music, that we are, that we are household names. We're something that's been handed down to several generations, In fact, I used to see it. I remember when we were doing Dave and I were in Slayer and Megadeth doing American Carnage. We were doing Rest in Peace. Were they doing Seasons of the Abyss or something?
Oh yeah. Like that was my perfect concert. I remember going because Rust in Peace, my favorite Megadeth. Seasons of the Abyss is my favorite Slayer. I'm like, I cannot miss this. I'm like, that is a night made for me.
But in 2010, right? So when we did Rust in Peace, the 20th anniversary, were they doing 20th anniversary Seasons in the Abyss? Were they
that would have been because that was 90. That was also 90. Yeah.
We debuted those records together on Clash of the Titans in Europe. Okay. So I just remember the front row in the arenas were like, high school kids, right? You could tell they probably went to Hot Topic, got their Slayer and Megadeth shirts, right? Or cut them online, whatever. Then back of the arena on the floor was the Next Generation. And then up in the seats was the third generation. Because at that point, it was probably about 30 years of our bands, 25 to 30 years. Now it's 40 years. So you can even see it switch over again, the Next Generation, So about every 10 years, you see a new age group coming in, and they're at the rail. They're down at the, at the barricade. And how cool to have that, that to be a generational band, like that generational genre, I should say. And of course, Pantera is probably getting to enjoy the same thing. But really, after Pantera, I mean, maybe Korn gets it. But after that, the bands that came after that, I don't know if there's a sort of a sell through of a generational thing. And I mean, look, Disturbed and Godsmack, these guys have been around now for probably 20.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, a future guest of this podcast, but I mean, Five Finger Death Punch is probably one of the bigger, arena bands out there now, and kind of having that, they get all the age groups out there. Avenged Sevenfold, another one that's kind of carrying the torch and stuff like that. But yeah, once you get into there's a lot of great newer bands out there, and I hope that they continue to rise and kind of become those next festival headliners and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, you came from a band that has a legacy that is going to be hard to match, because as much as there was MTV, as much as there was the metal magazines and stuff, there wasn't oversaturated, and you didn't know every single little move that you guys made back then. So there was still a mystique about bands.
Right.
Now it's like, oh, I know what my favorite band likes to have in his coffee, and what he just had for breakfast.
I know, man.
So.
And then we start a podcast and we just perpetuate all that. So that's
yeah. Then you're just like, oh yeah, I did this today. I did this. Yeah, it was so funny in the talk with Dave. He was talking about Mr. Bungle and the different time signatures, and riffs might not end on the one or whatever. There's a recent clip of Maynard talking about Tool songs and how all of them will be like, no, that's not the one. This is the one, and like trying to figure out where the riff starts and what's the one. And
well, that would happen a lot even in Megadeth. Dave would start, and it would probably play to Dave's Jimmy Page influence, where he would start a riff, and all of us in the room would kind of go, okay, that's got to be the one. So Nick would start there, and Dave would go, no, you're playing it upside down. It's backwards. Nick would just go, what are you talking about? I hear it there, and then when Dave would go, no, it's here, all of a sudden it's like, wow, that's pretty interesting, So even in our band, which was 4/4, not odd time signatures mostly.
Yeah.
I remember Al Petrelli, we were talking about that about Zeppelin. He made a comment like that, where he, kind of speaking the mind of Bonham. He goes, I don't know what he's doing, meaning Jimmy Page, but I'm playing 4, and eventually the riff turns around enough times, even if you play it 12 times, it comes back around to 4 to the 1 again, So, and that was kind of the magic of Zeppelin, was just the, da 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 da, you know what I mean? Just kind of keep playing a 4/4 groove, and eventually it will flip back around. Eventually you'll get to the 1 again, So, yeah, the Bungle thing was interesting. Like I said, I'm just not that familiar with it, but as I was, watching some videos online, I was like, oh, okay, I see. There's this very, avant-garde. I don't know if it's jazz, but it's almost Earth, Wind, Fire. There's this kind of weird upstroking, kind of clean guitar thing going on. And I was paying attention to how Dave was playing in that, that's because the drums kind of look, that's when you can't find the one, the audience, the listener, we go to the drums. All right, well, where's that at? Where's someone's got to be anchoring this thing in, and obviously Dave does a great job of that. So I'm very impressed.
For today's history lesson, I wanted to ask, what are your memories of kind of the big four coming together for those first shows? And what was the?
So here's a funny thing. So I'm Dave and I had been talking a little bit on text. I even flew over to California. This was as the Endgame album was out or just coming out. And we were talking, right? He was reaching out to me. And so we flew over, had sushi, walked along the Carlsbad Beach, just kind of hung out together, right? It was really nice. And then came the time to sort of negotiate. I remember I was at Judas Priest here. We're in town. And they were doing the 30th anniversary British Steel album, which for me is just die and go to headbanger heaven after that, right? And, right. So I had my attorney talking to Dave's manager, just trying to kind of negotiate, okay, how are we going to, because we're me and him just in and of ourselves, like, of course, let's grab a guitar, let's go, right? It was no problem to come back. And then it was just sort of like, okay. And for me, I was like, in my mind, just go do it for free and for fun. Don't even make it about the money. And of course, but there is money there. So that has to be negotiated, which is why Dave didn't want to talk about it between us. And then it kind of stopped. They were like, no, and then I remember getting kind of a mean message from Dave, like, your attorney fucked everything up. You know what I mean? And I was just like, what the fuck, So I just let it sit there for a bit. And then turned into the calendar into the new year, 2010. Big Four gets announced. In fact, I remember when it got announced, we were doing a gig with Hale. Me and Mike Portnoy. Actually, it was me and Ripper and Andreas Kisser, and Portnoy happened to be sitting in with us. We played BB King's in New York, and then we went up and played another show kind of up by where the Patriot Stadium is in New England there. And we were heading over to Eddie Trunk's to go to an interview, and Big Four got announced literally as I'm walking out the door of the hotel. And Portnoy's like, dude, you should be there for that. That's fucked up, man. You should be. I said, I know. And the funny, that was the only time I ever met Paul Diano. He was just coming out of Eddie Trunk, so we met him on the sidewalk, took a picture. And went up, did the interview and everything, and I was chafed. I was like, what the fuck, this sucks that we just can't make this work, And then literally I come home after that a couple days later, and as I've told the story, my BlackBerry is in this room. I'm having, it was my son's birthday. And I walk in the office and just digging, and it's Sean Drover and Willie G go, dude, call Dave, let's go, come on, because they had announced the 20th anniversary Rust in Peace. And the reason is Tom Araya, I guess, had to go in and have a neck surgery, right? So they had postponed American Carnage. So Megadeth's management put on sale the 20th anniversary Rust in Peace tour. So, which is just going to be a 1-month tour around the country. I should add this back up to summer, I guess June maybe of the previous year. I'm on tour with Tim Ripper Owens, right? I'd played on his record. It was me, Chris Caffrey, the drummer Simon from AC/DC, from Dio, and Wendy Dio's managing him, right? Simon, what was his name?
Simon
Wright. Yeah, Simon Wright.
Yeah.
Yep. So we're playing at Donington because Wendy put us on some shows with Heaven and Hell. And this is when Ronnie was still alive, of course, Ronnie James Dio. And so we're at Donington, and the agent, John Jackson, who had booked Megadeth for many years, books Metallica, Iron Maiden, Slayer, he comes to me and he goes, David, it's so great to see you. I've got this fantastic idea. He's very British, right? A nice British gentleman, right? And he goes, the Big Four, Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, I'm like, cool. And he said, I'm actually flying over to meet Dave and Slayer in Canada because it was Megadeth. Slayer was doing Canadian Carnage. because we're going to go. So I actually knew about this before Dave did. I knew about the big four before even Slayer and Megadeth knew about it. I knew about it, right? And John's a lovely man. And I told him, I said, it's a funny thing. Right before I was coming over here to do this, Dave was texting me. We were texting. I said, it's likely I might be in the band at that point, So this was 6 months before it even happened.
Oh, nice.
We were talking about this. So it was great that then, fast forward, we're at Eddie Trunks, and it hasn't happened yet. Portnoy's pissed. What the fuck? You should be in Megadeth. How could this egregious sin happen? You know what I mean? So, but anyway, and then it happened, so then it all came together. And, it was great. Obviously suddenly, within a phone call, I'm back in Megadeth. I drive over there to San Diego, throw a couple bases in my car. We jam. Fred Koala was there, who,
nice.
Who has been on our show.
Another future guest.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And, we just plug in and play it. It just sounds like Megadeth, like that. You know what I mean? We just rip through Sympathy of Destruction. It's like, all right, that's easy. Let's go. And so there's a lot ahead of us at that time. It was 20th anniversary, Rust in Peace, in the USA. Then we're going to South America. And, of course, we filmed the DVD, the Live from the Palladium, last night of the U.S. tour, then South America, then heading to Europe. We're going to do Big Four. So, yeah, it was just bang, bang, bang. Big, big stuff. It was interesting because Lombardo was back in Slayer. Joey Belladonna was back in Anthrax. So it was big, And I remember Lars said he was kind of briefing James and telling everybody, like, okay, this is what's going on. Ellison's back in Megadeth. Lombardo's back. Like, this is big stuff. This is big news anyway for each of the bands.
Oh, yeah.
And now we're all coming together as a family, as a brotherhood to go rock the biggest stadiums in the world. So it was, that's what I remember about it. It was great. And, we would play a show, and then kind of as the show was wrapping up, a Big Four show, we'd hear, oh, there might be another one, and that was kind of how they did it. They just put it out there. And I mean, sure, if you're Metallica's management, this is great. It's cool. But, you don't want Metallica to be beholden only to the Big Four, even though we probably could have fucking just gone on tour and done that for 2 years everywhere around the world. You know what I mean? I don't think there would have been one headbanger complaining, because it was so awesome. But, in between whatever else Metallica was doing at that time, we would do these Big Four shows. And they were always huge. They were big. And then the fact that to capture it on DVD and not only just the DVD, but also, they contacted, I think it was like a boxing promoter company where they, when they broadcast boxing fights worldwide, I heard that maybe it was a company like that, but however they did it, to be broadcast into the movie theaters around the world simultaneously, like kind of a simulcast. Oh, friggin' cool, man.
No pressure on that one, right? Like you're not like you're in front of a million people or whatever in Bulgaria, plus how many ever around the world watching on. I
think they filmed it, and then there was a quick go to the truck, give the mix a listen. We're good, great, let's go. And then so there might have been a slight time delay, but literally only like an hour. Like there wasn't enough time to go back in and fix anything. I mean, it was pretty much as it happened, or maybe we heard the mix and that was what went on the DVD or something. But yeah, it might have been a simulcast as we were performing.
Do you have anything in your Do you have anything in your past that you can think of that you're like, oh my God, we played on MTV this one time and I fucking flubbed the bridge? Like, is there anything you can think of that you're just like, you hit a wonky note that just sticks out in your head?
Not really on live TV, but yeah, I know what you mean. Is there one of those snafu moments? I think by the time you do it, you're in such a rhythm, and you kind of, I think, as you try not to just go, hey, here's the first time we've ever played this song.
Yeah, right.
The Spinal Tap would say, what is it? Exploratory jazz in front of a festival crowd. You try to rehearse it. I mean, look, Skin of My Teeth video that we filmed in Alpine Valley.
Okay.
The bill, it was Skid Row as a headliner, and Pantera were out with them. And then that one night we were on the bill. And then we filmed, so it was Skid Row, Megadeth, Pantera, and we filmed Skin of My Teeth that night. And nice. I remember it was cold. You can actually see our breath on the camera. because it was friggin' cold out, in Wisconsin in May or whatever that was when we filmed.
Right. Yeah, that's I always notice, like, right when I feel like I'm like, all right, I'm cool, I'm comfortable, I know this just is just secondhand. I'll never hit a bad note ever again. Right that moment, that's when I hit like the worst note possible. Like you're like focused on something and cry, like, what is that person wearing, or what is going on?
Yeah, right. That's when you forget the lyric. Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, and it's funny because look, some things can be, it's funny, live TV, for instance, I remember when we played with Seth Meyer, we were playing the song Dystopia, because I said to management, I said, listen, we're up for a Grammy. Don't artists usually play live on TV? I mean, the Ariana Grande or Mariah Carey or whoever, right? If you got a Grammy coming up, don't you usually do kind of the late night TV circuit, pimping the song? So they did. We did a warm up show at St. Vitus over in New York. Where's that at? Was that
Brooklyn, right?
Brooklyn, yeah, in Brooklyn. And then the next night we played Seth Meyer, which is live to tape, meaning it's live. If something really fucks up, you could recut it. I mean, I remember when we played with on David Letterman, we played the first time. It was great. It was awesome. They were so thrilled. He had all these great graphics and stuff about us, and he kept pimping it through the whole show. Second time we went there, it felt weird. Like there was something off in the. You could tell there was some tension between the staff. Like, so, it was not as peaceful and cool as it was before. And I guess office politics, right? So he goes and now promoting their new song, A Tulamon, Megadeth, and Marty goes to start and there's no sound, right? So it was like, oh shit. So it's one of those, all right, cut, because it was live to tape, meaning they're recording it to tape, but it's within an hour. You know what I mean? Like, they want it pretty much true to. If you start on the hour at, say, 5 p.m., we were filming, they by 5:59, they want it done. You know what I mean? And they sort of build the commercial breaks in to all that as well. So, that's a hassle. Plus, I'm sure it's heavy union in New York City, right? So to have the guitar not work could cost $10,000 to pay the union fees. Who fuck knows, So, but I remember they were kind. They did a re-intro, and we went back. Then it worked. But it kind of throws you a little off your game, because you're kind of going,
"Oh yeah,
is that guitar going to work?" I mean, there's an audience. It's being filmed. Paul Schaefer and the band are sitting right here. They're watching you. You know what I mean? So it's pressure cooker time for sure.
It's funny you're talking about stuff like that. Is when you're up there and you're playing, you're like, God, tonight is just off. Something's not right with the sound. This is the worst show I've ever played. And as soon as you walk off stage, somebody goes, that is the best show I've ever seen you guys play. And everything in your brain is like, no, well, actually it wasn't. You want to like, but then you just have to say thank you and move on. It's always those shows where people are like, I don't know what it was about tonight, man, but that was the best show I've ever seen. And you want to be like, well, actually my bass was off and I grabbed the wrong bass on this song. And, you want to point out every single thing that you did wrong.
And the audience is always right. I mean, as we say in America, the customer's always right. So like, hey, if they loved it, who am I to say that it wasn't? And then you kind of learn that as a professional. Like, you get the musician types who are like, oh man, I sucked. And it's like, that's sort of self-deprecating criticism. It's like, yeah, we got no time for that. It's like, take the compliment and move on. You know what I mean? Oh, thanks, man. All right, cool, bro. And then move on.
Yeah, that was always a good time. Well, I guess as we wrap this one up, man, let's just kind of give a nice little shout out to the Patreon members and say thank you to everybody that signed up for the Patreon so far. And just a huge thank you to everyone kind of supporting the podcast that way.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's great stuff in there. We'll have the links and all the stuff here. So yeah, definitely go check that out. It's funny, I've had a Patreon probably since COVID, never did anything with it until you brought it up. I said, here, I don't know, go set it up. So the first time I've actually used it and done anything with it. And it's fun. It's exciting. And to have some cool, unique experiences there for people that might want to sign up for that. So yeah, definitely be a part of that. It's definitely a big part of what we do here. And yeah, another one down.
Another one down.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys. And we will talk to you guys in a couple of weeks.